I wanted to start off by talking to you about something that I'd imagine most people don't know about, just how talented a football player you were growing up. What schools did you get scholarship offers from?
Every Division I school in the country. So,
Wow.
you know, which at the time, outside linebackers wasn't a big plethora of them, and like, you know, Lawrence Taylor was, you know, that kind of size, you know, was awesome, like 6'3", 240, fast, and I was all of those. So I like, you know, a big fat white boy was pretty rare, you know, and I could run. I had like a 4.65 40, and then I could run like a 4.7 backwards, you know, and so I had all the right pieces. I just like kind of nullified all of it with my non-disciplined lifestyle that was not football.
What were your goals at that point, football-wise, when you're getting all these scholarship offers?
I don't really know that I had anything. I didn't have anything to...
Did you want to play pros eventually?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
totally, yeah.
Okay.
And I saw myself doing it, and
Okay.
I think I was big and fast enough that I could, like, it wasn't really a pipe dream, so much so that I never had anything to fall back on. You know, make sure you get... I didn't care about school,
Right.
like, you know, or any of that stuff.
How often would you have to bring out your birth certificate when you were younger?
Every game, every Saturday morning, like Pop Warner, which it was RJTFL, which is Riverside Junior Tackle Football League. Every game I had to bring my birth certificate.
Really?
Yeah, and like it was pretty, like the negative press didn't start 5 years ago or whatever. It started like when I was in my early teens, you know, 10, 11, 12 years old when I started. I mean, I was like 13, I had like a goatee. Like I look like as old as I do now, like very early on.
What would parents say?
They were just like pissed, you know, like, you know, I mean, partly because I would just like dominate kids and like, but there was also some other tough kids there too, you know, but they'd take like razor blades, make the refs take, I had those early bike like arm pads, they'd like make them slice holes in them because parents complained I filled my pan pads with sand, and then they have to have my birth certificate, and then it's just like, it was probably like glory for me then, you know, like I didn't.
What positions did you play?
In like all Pop Warner from when I was 7, 8 years old until my senior year in college. I played offensive tackle, defensive end, middle linebacker, and all the special teams. Like I would never come off the field.
So the high school, your freshman year, what do you do to your star upper class quarterback who sucker punched you in the hallway in one of your first practices?
Roger Pebley, he walked by me and like elbowed me, bam.
Just
like,
in the hallway?
Just in the hallway, like elbowed me super hard in the ribs. And I just like, I remember like, I never made eye contact, and I just like went, I mean, it hurt, and like came close to knocking the wind out of me, but he was like, I don't remember what he said. He said something because he had some friends around him and he was trying to be a tough guy. And then I just like kind of stumbled and just kept walking. Like I remember I like clenched up and then just never broke stride. I'm like, okay.
But you're the young guy too. He's the...
Yeah, and like he's the like captain,
Right.
you know, like, you know, the type with his Letterman's jacket, like kind of bottom button and it's kind of pushed back, you know, that kind of dude with custom hair. Like I just...
So what'd you do on the football field?
I think I was playing defense and I like ran in and like sacked him, and I just like it was like just got him down. I like held his face mask and just punched him, like lifted it up and punched him in his jaw, like in like everywhere I could hit and not hit my hand. And like he was almost like to the point of tears, and everybody was like stunned and shocked. And that like set the tone for my whole high school experience.
In the non-disciplined lifestyle you had growing up that got in the way of the football, which is kind of amazing how determined and driven and the model type football player you were, complete opposite when you got off the field.
It was simple. If looking back now, it's crystal clear. You know, I had discipline because I had coaches who were my parental figures.
Okay.
At home, my dad was gone all the time. I was home from the time I got up until late at night every day, sometimes never come home. So like, I didn't have any reason not to get in trouble. I think if he was there, 90% of the stuff I did, I wouldn't have done, you know, because, oh, I'm gonna get in trouble.
What do you recall from stealing Olympian Scott Hamilton's Porsche?
You know, I told him I was sorry. It's the only reason I did The Apprentice.
Oh, the only reason?
Yeah, because
Okay.
they asked me like the first 4 or 5 years, like, will you do it? Nah. Will you do it? Nah. And like they told, finally, I'm like, who's on it? Just out of curiosity. And they said, Scott Hamilton. I said, I'll do it.
What'd you say to him when you
I
finally
waited
saw
till
him?
the night he got fired, and I walked out, and all the producers got really mad. Like, oh, you can't leave the set. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But I went out and talked to him out in the street and told him, I said, hey, man, you know, I'm sorry, you know, for stealing your. He's like, oh, man, Jesse, he's all, I forgave you for that a long time ago. You'll always be my favorite thief. and like, you know, I was 40 years old when I apologized to him, and you can't believe the load it lifted, because like I see him in the Olympics and he went through cancer and all this other stuff, and is obviously like a good dad and a good dude, and like, you know, I think it's pretty rare, the opportunity to be able to, a mistake you made when you were a kid, how rare of an opportunity it is to be able to go back and make amends for it. Mm-hmm. You know, because everybody does stupid stuff, and if you could go back and like, in a way, reverse it a little bit and make it better, you know, it made me, you know, because there's a lot of other ones in there that I can't make amends for, so.
What did you guys like about stealing cars so much?
I think we were really poor, like really, like, you know, no money, no, you know, no, both of us didn't have any parents to speak of. His dad was a Vietnam vet that was a little, like, you know, nuts. And like, so we kind of just made our own way, you know, we kind of fed off each other. You know, I think Lonnie was a little bit crazier than I was, but, you know, I did my best to like outdo him, and I didn't, you know, I think some of the stuff, like Lonnie and I robbed a hamburger stand together, and like
Magnolia and Riverside.
Yep, George's hamburger stand, and like I used the money to buy school clothes. And like, I remember my dad was so pissed because he didn't know where I got the money from. And I had like these I went to like the mall and bought like lamest clothes ever, probably, in these new boots that were like $100. And I remember he was just mad because I didn't have to like go to him to ask for it or whatever, you know.
How often did you steal growing up?
Pretty often. Like, I don't know. I think it was like a contest for us, you know, like we didn't really, you know.
What do you mean?
Well, like we had a contest who could come out of Radio Shack with the biggest thing. And I remember I went in and got like a police scanner and like a Walkman and something else. I'm like, yeah, I won. And then Lonnie, who was in my book as a Bobby, he walked out with the whole home stereo system. I'm like, oh, you won. Like, just,
and how
like,
did he walk
I don't
out?
know, it was like some little Indian dude, you know, that ran the counter. He just like, just give him a mean look and just like, he didn't even try to stop us.
Tell about the one time you got confronted stealing from the supermarket.
Oh, that was like the little Circle K store up the street from school. The guy like came and like, Lonnie and I were like taking jugs of milk and turning it upside down. This is like on high school break.
Okay.
So like we had like a 20-minute break, and the store was a block away. So we were like, I don't know what we were doing. We were like taking jugs and turning it upside down.
Just
and
pouring milk out in
yeah,
the store?
like putting them between the other bottles, just watching milk. You know, like we're like 15 or 16 or whatever, and like the dude came and like, bam, grabbed me on the shoulder, and I'm like, boom, like knocked him out, and like split, like went back to class. And
You didn't think anything of it?
No, I didn't think anything of it. And like, woo, 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 woo. I'm sitting in like third period algebra class, Mrs. Baker, and I'm sitting there, and like cops come in with guns and like arrest me right in the same class. And I was gone for like 60 days to jail. And then I got out of jail at like 7 or 8 in the morning, and then walked from downtown to high school. And I walked and got in the middle of third period, got there in the middle of the same class where I was arrested, and like walked right from jail to right back to the scene where I was arrested. And like Miss Baker said, "Hey, Mr. James, how was your vacation?" I was like, "It was good. All right, cool. Have a seat."
Explain the robbery that happened that ended up adversely affecting your football career.
Well, like, we were stealing Camaros, like IROC Camaros. So, I figured out how to like pop the door locks and hotwire the ignition. We could take them in like 30 seconds. And so like all my friends, like guys that work for my dad, like I would get them like IROCs, for like $1,500. And like, it was really dumb. Like we were driving around stolen cars, and like the dealership, we were just taking them off the dealer lots. And so like I had one half stripped in my garage, and then one with no wheels on it with in my driveway under a tarp. And then I like came flying around the corner, wow, like with the radio blaring and stuff. And there's like 20 cop cars, and my dad and another cop sitting in my front yard. I'm like, I started to gas it, and I'm like, oh, I'm caught. So I pulled over and like stopped. Cops came, like handcuffed me, and the officer was his son, Shane, I had played with since the Pop Warner days, and we played all through high school. His name was Officer Goldstein, and he told my dad exactly this. He says, he's all, "Larry," I'm standing there handcuffed, they're standing behind me. He's all, "Why don't you just make him a receipt, Larry, and tell him, say he bought him from someone at a swap meet or something. We'll just be done with all this." And my dad said, "No, he's going to jail." And I remember I like sitting there, like feeling like my heart sink, like, oh, like I heard that, and then I probably was like, yeah, like I'm done, I'm free. And then like, oh. And then for that time, like I'd already had priors and stuff, and it just went for like, I think it was almost 90 days. So
Why do you think your dad had you sent to jail?
I would hope that like he wanted, I hope he sent me for the reason that happened, because I learned my lesson, and like as soon as it flipped off like a light switch after that, it was like really bad because I was this all-star player, and so it was in all the papers, or all the papers local, and then I got out, and it's like kind of the fallout, like all the schools had come for visits while I was gone, and like, we'd like to meet with him and
Right.
and talk to him about visiting our school. Nope, he's in jail. Oh, okay. Well, okay. See you later. They don't come back after that. And so I had one option to go to junior college. And
How did you find out? I think you found out you were in Parade magazine the same time you found out about
yeah, like
the scholarship offers.
Parade
going
All-American
away, right?
and all that stuff, and like it just kind of, it sucked because it just totally like, I can't think of anything more blowing it than that. If I have one like fault in my life that I wish I could redo, it's that one, because like my life would have been way different, I think. I don't know if it would have been better, but like, big mistake.
So you end up playing, the only offer was college ball and junior college. At one point, I think you're struggling, and so you want to make a change. You take the knee brace off for the first time in 5 years that you had just for protective purposes. And, I think you have a great first half. You have like 3 sacks in the first half. And then what happens?
I got drilled. It was against Long Beach, and got drilled in the knee, and like it was done. Like folded my leg up and tore out all my medial collateral and my ACL, and like ruptured the meniscus, and like tore it up. Pretty much the worst you can do it.
How awful was the hit?
It wasn't really that awful. It was just like, because he hit me when I wasn't looking. It was just the way angle, and it hit my knee, and like, like drilled me in the knee. But it's karma, because like I did that same shit to people, like I was vicious. I would like, guys would try to headhunt me or whatever, like wide receivers and stuff, boom, I'd hit them right in the legs. That was just the way it was.
So after a grueling recovery process, at least it seemed like you were going to come back when, reading your book. Describe the setting and explain why you decided to stop playing.
The setting was where it was in the tunnel on the bottom of the grandstands. And what's significant about that is like that tunnel is like, I played in the same, we didn't have a stadium in high school. So for 4 years of high school and 2 years of college, for 6 years, I played at the same spot. And so that tunnel was like special to me because where the band used to come through, and I used to make them stop there and play for a minute when you come through, because it like marching band, like drums,
Sure.
like gets me crazy. And so I was sitting right there in the spot that means a lot. And like, I remember Barry Meyer and Coach Brown, the defensive coordinator, they're like, sit down, okay, you're all cleared to play. Are you ready to suit up and everything? And like, I had never really thought about not doing it. I think it's just kind of the way they approached me and like the way it went about. I just said, I thought to myself, I said, you know what? One day I want to have some kids and like pick them up and run with them. And I was 18 or barely 19. And I just said, you know what? I'm done.
How did your decision to stop playing make you feel?
I don't know. Like, I don't really know what I felt. I really didn't have anything to fall back on, so I didn't know what I was going to do. I still worked at the shop, kind of, and then, I got one of those jobs, like, you can make $2,000 a week, and I flew to Seattle and worked in a shipyard for a year, welding. I could weld, and I passed the test barely and got my Navy cert and went and did a welding job for, a year. And it was the worst, standing outside in the ice rink,
But that obviously paid off. I want to take you back to your younger days, just to give the family life some context. So when you were living at your dad's house, your real mom and your dad were separated, so you had
yeah. My
stepmom.
mom and dad got divorced when I was like 4, and I don't know. I still don't know the whole story, and I kind of don't want to. But like my dad dealt drugs. He was like a drug dealer and he's talented at restoring furniture in an antique business, and he had the contract in the 70s to fill all the TGI Fridays with antiques.
Wow.
So we would buy all these furniture and bass drums, him and my godfather. My godfather is Barry Weiss from Storage Wars.
Okay.
So him and my dad were like business partners in the 70s, and like, but they had like a whole other business. Like if you bought a buffet at the Rose Bowl swap meet, it was $10,000, and it came with like a kilo of Coke in it delivered to your house. So they had so fine. That stuff's cool, but it makes a lot of situations in my life like, hey, how come we're going to the Knott's Berry Farm parking lot at 3 a.m. to meet some shady dude in the leather jacket? I'm tired, I gotta go to school tomorrow,
Right.
Stuff like that over and over again.
And you wrote about your real mom, that she wasn't a bad person. She just really didn't make much of an effort to be in your life at that point. But
yeah.
How do you view your dad?
Well, my dad's he's like George Carlin mixed with Fred Sanford. He's like a funny, charming dude. But right up until I was like 12 years old, and then he I don't know if it was like drugs or his, lifestyle or what, he just let this lady moved in, the bitch mom that let her kids and they kind of infiltrated my life. Me and my dad had this rad relationship where we worked and hung out, and then he let this lady and her kids move in, and they kind of screwed up the whole thing, and the kids were stealing from me, and it just was, wasn't a good situation, and I think my dad kind of rode with that side, and I was the dick, and I was the problem, and he kind of let her get in his ear about how terrible I was, and it all makes sense now that I'm a parent. I've had kids that are getting in trouble and pushing their limits and stuff like that. Then you understand oh, well, this is what he should have did. He should have kids want to know their parents have their back, good or bad, 100%.
Right.
My mom has her faults when I was growing up, but only one parent came and visited me one time all the times I went to jail, and that was my mom. She came one time on Christmas, you know. And she lives here now, actually, with us. And the girls love having her here, and it's like, it's great, you know.
Your family's out of town. You're in high school at the time, at your friend's house, and all of a sudden you smell something burning.
Yeah. And I was like down the street, probably a little bit past where the house, like quarter mile away or something. I'm like, we're walking around the house, like, what's burning? Something's burning. What is that? Like for like 10 minutes. And then we look out, my house is just crazy on fire. And so run down there, and like fire department was rolling up there, and it just like torched the whole house torched the garage to the ground, and then burnt the roof off the whole house. And it was like, I remember my dad was married to this lady who was kind of a bitch. And she had convinced my dad. My dad was like up in Ventura or something, away for the weekend. So I was there by my house with the fire department, and the house burnt down, you know, and like I'm like dealing with it. And then my dad came home, and by the time he had got home, she had like fully convinced him that I had burnt it down myself. Like, and like I remember
What did your dad do when he got there?
We were in the living room with the fire department. We were kind of salvaging whatever, and it was my dad and his wife and the firemen, and the whole roof was gone off the house. And my dad like got in my face, and I was like, you know, I was always fearful of my dad. I never really stood up to him, but I just said, you know what, you, like that. And I remember my dad reared back and just pow, like hit me in the nose, right in the face as hard as he could, and like I kind of like stumbled back, and then I just tackled him. And I remember I tackled him, and we like went through the drywall and through a wall in the house, and like just went at it. And the firemen had to break us up and stuff, and that was it. I jumped in my car, carried whatever I could carry, and I was gone.
Where'd you go?
Went to my girlfriend's house with her and her mom, you know.
How did that impact you?
Well, it sucked because everything, despite being accused of burning my own house down, everything that got destroyed was mine, because it was all my tools and stuff. And then, you know, one of my bikes, one of my Harleys was in the garage. And, you know, I think it was probably the best thing to happen, because it was not a great relationship with my dad and my girlfriend's mom, Linda Carter. Superwoman, literally. But she like, no BS, man. Like, hey, you live here, you have to get a job, you have to do this, and you know, have to go to school. And like living with with my girlfriend and her mom and her boyfriend, her mom's boyfriend, it was kind of like my first experience of like a family.
Did that kind of keep you on the straight and narrow?
I think so.
Okay.
Well,
at least more so than when you were...
Yeah, somewhat.
Okay. So you end up leaving junior college when you stop playing football, your scholarship's rescinded, you don't even have the nominal money to pay for the rest of your school. So you leave, you have a variety of jobs, one of which is as a bodyguard. Mm-hmm. And bodyguard for musicians on tour. I know you were bodyguard for the Red Hot Chili Peppers when mm-hmm. Nirvana and Pearl Jam were their opening acts. What was that like, being...
It was awesome and fun for about 1 year.
Okay.
Then I was good at it, so more responsibility got lumped on me, like tour management and accounting and collecting money and making sure promoters aren't ripping them off and stuff like that. And then bands, like dealing with horrible bands like the Black Crowes and stuff, which are just like, it's like glorified babysitting, you know. It got unfun. Then you're like in a different city 5 days a week. But the best thing about it is I used it as R&D for what I'm doing now. So I went all around the world in 5 years, like 4 or 5 times. And so what I did is I went to every single motorcycle shop and motorcycle show I could in every country, and like basically downloaded all that information and built my styling curve for what I know now, you know, and met a lot of people who I'm still friends with now in Europe and Sweden and stuff like that. And
How much did it help, do you think?
Oh, a lot. I think, you know, getting that global sense of what you do, you know, kind of opened your eyes. You know, there's other things and other craftsmen out there.
Tell about the stage dive.
I was during White Zombie, like we were like having contests with me and some other guys to see who could stage dive, and like I jumped and the crowd like parted like the Red Sea, and I landed like with my arm in front of me, dislocated my elbow. I like got up like and my arm went like boop the other, like bent the other way. I'm like fuck. And so I stayed on the road another month in like a cast and all that stuff, and I kind of came home after that tour and I was like, you know what, I'm done.
You did have an unfortunately tragic incident when a kid actually died in your arms when you were working security. How vividly do you recall that?
It was a St. Petersburg or Orlando, like kid was like crowd surfing and stuff, and
How old was he?
he was probably 13,
Wow.
12, 13, 14, something like that. He wasn't a very big kid. But the guy reached up and like, boom, and like kind of the crowd was higher than the pit.
And that was a security guy that
The pit between the stage, you know, about a 4-foot gap, and they kind of like piled. And I was kind of sitting down, kneeling down on the side of stage, watching everything. And I kind of, you know, I've seen kids be pulled down before, but like I noticed there was like a few, just a little bit too long where he didn't pop back up. Nobody was looking at him, and I'm like, 10 seconds go by, I'm like, so I dove down there, and the kid just like kind of in an awkward position, like out. And like I grabbed him and like grabbed him, threw him up on the stage, grabbed him, ran out the door. And I kind of like, right as I got out the door outside, kicked the door open and got out, he kind of felt him just go like that. And he was just dead, just stopped breathing. And like there was EMTs and they tried to revive him, but it was done. And it kind of like, man, I was so bummed. It's like, because the worst thing you could have did to that kid is grab him and throw him out the back door and he misses the rest of the show. That would have been like devastating. Like, oh man, you guys are like, you know, I lost $40 or whatever, you know, but like to end his life for doing something that's like one of the last things you could do as a kid, you know, to have like fun with a little bit of violence, you know, it was just senseless, you know, really bummed me out, like affected me for a long time.
What motivates you?
The challenge, for sure. Like if something's easy and I know I can do it and it's not physically, mentally challenging, then like I'm on to the next thing that's impossible, you know?
How would you describe what the creative process is like for you?
Well, I mean, we live in a world where all the information is right there for everybody to get. Anybody who wants to Google or do 45 minutes of research can learn just about every trade now. At least most of the lingo to sound like they know what they're doing for a blog,
Right.
or a message board. So to cut new grooves and to do stuff that hasn't been done before and figure out new techniques and new processes and new way of thinking and doing things, that's hard now, you know. It's hard to be different, and we're, you know.
How do you do it?
I think just pushing myself, you know. In this shop right here, there's a lot of challenging stuff that goes on. In fact, I figured out a way to forge Damascus steel, you know, like 3,000-year-old technique, and so I make guns out of that now, and make a gun that hasn't been made out of that before, and so.
Which you'll spend like days
Months.
forging a piece of the steel
I just
just
spent
for like one gun.
I just spent a month and a half on a piece for a gun, and it didn't work. I guessed wrong on the last final size, and it was 30 thousandths of an inch too thin.
I understand you can get inspiration from just about anything. I think even a trash can in Paris.
Yeah. I think, yeah, like architecture, like I have a Tumblr blog. I follow a lot of architectural stuff on there and Instagram, and that stuff, like, you know, architectural metalwork and stuff is a lot of great stuff. And I think I don't really have a main source of inspiration, you know. I'm inspired by the guy that, you know, not the guy like me that's on TV for doing a job. Like, I would be irrelevant in 1942. You know, there was factories full of guys that were better than me using these machines. These machines came out of factories like that, they spent, you know, they worked 3 shifts, 7 days a week building airplanes and stuff, and no one thought of them as a hero.
And what about wartime manufacturing and World War II so interests you?
It's just the commitment, you know, like the sacrifice, the commitment. You know, it's the pinnacle of this country banded together for a common cause. You know, we saw evil in the country, and everybody, you know, if you weren't part of that, you were like a communist or you were a Nazi. You know, if you weren't saving plastic and tinfoil and stuff like that for metal, you know, for recycling, you weren't American. You know, like to me, the most pinnacle form of that is the Vallejo shipyard, which was the biggest shipyard in the country, built a Class C destroyer in, I think, 37 days. 40,000 people at that shipyard, and they built a destroyer from flat metal to a launched boat that was shooting, headed to Europe, or it's headed to the Pacific in 37 days. So you can't tell me there's some guys that didn't have to like work some free overtime and didn't have to get up on Sunday and work 15 hours and didn't have to sacrifice to like make that happen. You know, that to me, like, it was the most amazing time. I wish I was around in that era.
What's your fascination with the innovation in manufacturing?
I think it falls in line with that whole figuring out a new way to do stuff. You know, like, you know, I think cutting a new groove and trying to do stuff that hasn't been done before. I have to have one foot in these old machines and old ways. That's what separates me. You know, it's like, I think if people want to hang with what I do, then you have to like develop the skills that I've developed for 25 years. You know, that keeps people from fully copying what I do, you know, is by educating myself and making myself more skilled. And then I have to keep the other foot in like new technology, because if you're not doing the new latest and greatest in some aspect, you're going to get left behind.
How did the Discovery Channel show come about?
I fired an office manager at the shop and like was cleaning out her desk, and I found a Post-it note that said Discovery Channel filming several days, call ASAP, on the side of her desk, like a note she took and never gave it to me. And so they showed up like the next day, and then like, man, we were like slammed at the shop. Like, we didn't have time for anything like that. And I had done some like local TV shows and stuff like that, and didn't really see a value in it. This is 1999.
Okay.
So I was like, you know, we want to do this, and we're going to be here for a month, and blah, blah, blah. And like, I didn't really see it as valuable. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. And it was like a fight from day one, like, just like them trying to do stupid stuff. And it was Tom Beers and Hugh King, who I'm still friends with Tom today. And then like, you know, we filmed it, and I mean, I think I'm hilarious. like I'm Richard Pryor funny, but I like went and watched it on the editing board like the night before the show aired, after the sound and everything was done, and I'm like, oh man, people are gonna hate me, like, cause I just say what I feel. I don't like, you know, if that offends you, I'm sorry. It's what I'm.
It's also hard seeing yourself on TV for the first time.
Yeah,
too.
for real, like an hour-long show,
Right.
like all about me. And so I like watched it, and I'm like, oh man, I didn't sleep at all that night. And then I was at the shop. It was like a Sunday night, I think, and I was at the shop working, and like the show had aired in the New York feed on Discovery, at 3:00, and it was 3:00 West Coast time. It was airing on the East Coast, and like the phone rang, and it was some dude. It was a black guy from Detroit. He's all, man. He's all, is this Jesse James? I said, yep. He's all, man, I saw you standing on the cliff in that show saying you're tired of kicking the world's ass. He's all, I know exactly how you feel, brother. Keep it up. And then I was like, dude, I knew it was going to be all right.
How did your life change after that first show aired?
It was crazy, like, because metalworking stuff is real popular now, but the one thing that like kind of made the record skip is me taking a piece of flat metal and hammering it into a gas tank, and like people had never saw that on a national TV scale. Like I could take something by hand and make something functional and cool looking out of it, and it like, I think that was it. And just like the bikes and the dogs fighting and just like this, like I don't think they would air that show now.
Really?
I don't think so. Definitely some of the Monster Garage episodes they wouldn't air now, and I think it was crazy times because Discovery was almost bankrupt, and they were still like mostly bugs and planets and dinosaurs, and like the joke at Discovery was like, well, this is pre-internet, so it melted down the phone lines at the network, shut their phone, their operator board.
Your documentary.
Yeah, so it
Wow.
shut it down. And the biggest show that was on before that was the real story of Jesus Christ, which aired like 5 years before that. And so the joke was like, Jesse's bigger than Jesus. But it shut it down. And then, so typical TV thinking, like, we need to do that every week. Like, so they immediately like I think they aired it that Sunday night, and then they aired it every night for like months. Just kept like, well, keep going, it's good, right. Keep going, like, and they, it became like the highest rated show in the history of the network in 2000, and then they came up with Beers and I, they wanted to do a weekly series, so let's do something where in the arc of the show, like we start with one thing, and then at the end of the show, it's something totally else. Totally different, like a VW Bug. We drive in and we drive out. It's a swamp boat, something like that. And so it was the most awesome negotiation ever. So like Discovery said, we did 4 episodes, and we started filming. The first episode was all my friends on the build, and if you notice, the first episode halfway through, they had all split. They're like, this sucks. We're not doing, no one was getting paid, and no one understood the value of it. And they're just like, oh man, why are you making us do? I gotta go back to Florida and everything. So if you notice the episode number 1, the Mustang lawnmower, I'm there doing it by myself. Like I didn't know how it was gonna be, but I'm like, this could be cool. And we did it, and I think we were halfway through the second episode, then Discovery came, we got to negotiate the contract for 4 episodes. We're only going to do 4 episodes, and you're going to get paid $5,000 an episode, and that's going to be it. We're not going to do more. I'm like, all right, fine. And so they aired the first 4, and it was like, it's the most profitable show in the history of their network. They were charging the same ad rates as Everybody Loves Raymond, and like, I became the highest paid person in the history of that network.
You mentioned the money, especially given where you came from, but I'd imagine the money accelerated really quickly for you given how fast the show took off. What was that like?
Well, at the height of the brand, so the first show aired in 2000. In 2000, West Coast Choppers, the most successful motorcycle shop in the country before the TV show came. So, we were selling, $100,000 at Sturgis for t-shirts in a week and stuff like that. Then the TV show came, and then it was like crazy. I started selling stuff to Hot Topic and malls, and I sold in 2001, in a year span, I sold $45 million at Hot Topic. And then Walmart approached me. I was making some little die-cast models of bikes. Walmart approached me and asked, like, hey, do you think, I had a friend that worked there, and in 2001, Walmart wasn't what Walmart is today. It was the dumping grounds. Nike wouldn't sell to them, Adidas, no name brand sporting equipment, no licensing. The number one t-shirt they had at Walmart was Corona beer. And the most expensive t-shirt they ever sold in the history of that company was $9.99. And I came in, it was a hard decision because everybody told me no. Like, I had like president of Frito-Lay and like all these pretty good.
Right.
I asked everybody, I thought, man, should I sell? They really want to sell my stuff. And everybody told me no, except for my friend Kid Rock. He's all, dude, I wish I could have something that I could sell at Walmart. You should do it. And so I did it. And then
you had all
it was a big leverage
executives
because
of the board telling you no, and then Kid Rock's the one that.
I had to leverage that $45 million business 1 year after I just made it, because I knew if I sell to a place that has, Hot Topic had 700 stores and Walmart had 3,200. So I knew I would be like, that's what I'm betting.
Right.
And I did it, and we sold $100 million worth in 60 days at Walmart. I came in at $21.99 for t-shirts and like sold $100 million in 60 days. It was so big. I mean, I remember I was sitting at a bar in Vegas, at like a sports bar, and I remember it came on CNN, and it showed like my t-shirts on the rack at Walmart, and it said, "Attention all choppers." And I was like, whoa, that's like, that's like big time. And then, but that set the tone, so the TV I did set the tone for all this TV we're dealing with now. And then Walmart set the tone for now. Walmart has their own licensing division, and they're tied in with all the big movie makers. So they do tie-ins with the movies and stuff. None of that stuff existed. I came in, it was like ducks, like shooting fish in a barrel, man. It was like I came in, I had 25 feet of rack with toys and die-cast toys from Monster Garage and bikes, and like it
Wow.
I did close to $1 billion in sales in like 9 years, and off a handshake deal with them. I never sold to anybody else. The people at Target like hate me still because I would never sell them anything. But I was like, man, if these guys are so good, why would I do anything to mess up with it?
What are you thinking is, $100 million in 60 days at Walmart as all this is happening?
Well, I'm business minded and I'm a hustler, so like I kind of, wasn't really thinking about the dollar amount so much. And so, it was great though for 7 or 8 years. It was a lot of fun figuring out products and doing products geared towards kids. That kind of stuff was really cool. But, it kind of got so big that it went away from me working with my hands. I would never turn my welder on for months at a time, and never, it was meetings and, production meetings, and I was like a mid-level manager, and got miserable. Yeah, you're successful, but I think that that kind of success is perceived success. It's so like telling you I made $100 million on t-shirts, that sounds awesome, right?
Right.
But
You didn't have the lifestyle you wanted to have.
it makes me feel better about myself telling you I made a gun out of Damascus. Because that, to me, I think is probably harder.
Right.
More self-fulfilling. Life you kind of learn what you're supposed to be doing. And I can do it, and I can do mass marketing and mass retail and product design and all that stuff. I have a real knack for it. I think the way my dad brought me up, but I'm fully belong working with my hands.
What would you say is your favorite Monster Garage creation?
I think there's a couple. There's one where we did all the old timers, all the We did a 54 Chevy customized with all these famous car customizers from the 50s and 60s that had never worked together before. It was like just amazing, like guys that had built the Batmobile and stuff like that. And it's one of those weeks I didn't want it to end, you know, and it just was cool. And then we did that Iraq Confidential, which was like the last build that I'd left and did on my own in Iraq.
You had to foot the bill.
Yeah, we did that one, and that one was kind of meaningful because it was like shining a positive light on people that are risking their lives and not really, you know, in 2005, no one wanted anything to do with Iraq, so that was cool. And then I did that one for this kid Tyler that died of cancer, like dedicated a build to him, was cool. There's like 100 episodes. There's a lot of good ones in there. I forget about some of the ones we did, so.
What would you say is the most satisfying experience you've had?
As far as builds,
Uh-huh.
the flying car was pretty cool, you know. That was cool because it was on 60 Minutes. That was pretty cool, and like, I think it was Walter Cronkite said my name introducing the segment. That was pretty cool.
Right.
Like that was like, oh, I knew that was cool then. I think as far as the most satisfying, I think probably the flying car. Probably the hardest build to do in 5 days and pull it off. And I don't know, it was a challenge for me, you know. They're talking about bringing it back. They've been wanting to. I know Beers actually talked to a friend of mine yesterday. Actually, my father-in-law, I talked to him, saw him at some restaurant, and they're working on bringing it back, so.
With you involved?
They can't do it without me.
So what
Like, they've already tried like 3 or 4 times. It doesn't work. No one's gonna crack the whip like me.
So what's your interest level in doing that?
I think it'd be cool, you know. It was a fun show, and it was like, it's gonna be the yard. Anything else I ever do on TV, that's the yardstick, which is compared
Right.
with, you know. And I'm never gonna do some lesser Monster Garage show and like, oh, it's like Master Garage or something, you know.
Right.
It's like, you know, and it kind of, I don't know. I think we should. I think we could start doing it and start airing it right away. And I think so many kids and so many careers and so much inspiration has came from people out of that silly show that I think its timing is even better now.
So before the Discovery Channel show even started, you know, your business, West Coast Choppers, was already a big success. I want to take you back to an early meeting you had that really seems to be, from what I understand, one of the key meetings of your career. The company's just kind of in its infancy, and you get a meeting with a company called Custom Chrome.
Mm-hmm. When my dad had his drug business, antiques, him and Barry, they had a warehouse in Paramount, like North Long Beach, California, and they shared a warehouse with Perry Sands, who owns Performance Machine. It's like, and he was just starting his business, so I went right to him and got a job working for Performance Machine for a year to learn CNC machining knowledge and all that stuff, and then I left and went to Boyd's. Well, while I was at Perry's, he made these wide tire kits, and they were taking super like Taiwan stamped fenders from Custom Chrome and like cutting them offset and welding them together so bikes could have a fat tire on it in the early 90s. And like I was welding those up, and it was terrible. The metal was like Taiwanese steel, which like isn't the best quality because it's ground up cars with like plastic and rubber in it. So when I went to Boyd's, I kind of kept thinking about it a better way. In there, like 93, I really started to like learn metal work, and I went and apprenticed with a guy for a couple weeks up in San Jose named Ron Covell, and then like came back, and I'm like, man, I want to make a fender on my own. And so I started making fenders in my garage after work, and I met a guy named Skeeter Todd at the Laughlin River Run. And he worked for he worked for a company that was like the competitor of Custom Chrome. He's like, you should call Steve Fisk. I go, I'll buy as many as you can make, but anything else Fisk will buy too. And so, it got crazy. I was like selling them for like $700 or $800 a piece, and I was like making $700 a week salary working for Hot Rods by Boyd, and then I was making 15 grand a week welding in my garage at night. And so then I started to sell to distributors so they could go global. Well, I have some Hell's Angel friends, like Custom Chrome requested it. Bought some fenders directly from me to look at them. Well, I have some Hell's Angel friends that I met when I was a bodyguard that are in like Singapore and China. He took the fenders and sent them right over there and tried to have them copied.
Oh, wow.
And like,
What was your reaction when you found out?
my friends knew, I was pissed. My friends sent them back, or said the Taiwanese turned it down because they're too hard. We can't make those. We can't do this here. And so they sent them back. And I knew about that, and he didn't know about it. And so we had a meeting, and he says, you know, I told him, I said, hey, this is the price, and I want every one of these fenders to have my name on the inside of it, Jesse James, West Coast Choppers, like a brass tag. He said, he's all, why would we do that? He said, I can understand if your name was like Arlen Ness or one of the big names in the industry. I'm like, hey, you know what? Maybe someday I'll be big in the motorcycle industry, but that's just the way it's going to be. And he said, no. So I was like, all right. 2 weeks later, he called and agreed and sent me, and I can remember, this is like a pinnacle part of my business. I got I left Boyd's, I'm making fenders and building bikes on my own, and I got a fax machine in the shop. And that sound, like, you know, the fax coming through, and I remember like $125,000 purchase order came over, and it was like just me. I didn't have any employees or nothing. I'm like, oh, how am I gonna do this? And like, so buckled down, and I farmed out a little bit and hired a welder and fired him, and then I was by myself again, and then, you know, just figured it out, you know. But that was like, to me, that's when, like, one of the most successful points in my life where I knew, like, oh, like, whoa, like the fax coming in, custom chrome, this big order. I should have been looking at the profit margin though. That's where I messed up.
Really?
No, well, it was good for what it was, but like, hindsight, distributors only make the lion's share.
Who are some of the notable people you've made bikes for?
Oh, like Ty Law from the Patriots, Shaq, obviously, every wrestler, like Diamond Dallas Page, Big Show, like, you know, Steve Austin, like, who else? Like all of them. Like it was like a rite of passage to be a WWE wrestler in like the early 2000s to like 2005, 2008. You weren't an official wrestler unless you had one of my bikes.
What was involved with making Shaq's bike? I mean, he's a big dude.
I took a picture of him in the seated position, like on a bike, and then this is before like CAD cam stuff. What is this, like 2001, 2002? And then I measured, I had him sitting there with his positions, and then I put it on my computer screen. This is like floppy disk days, and like took dividers and measured like his distance and stuff with reference points that were pre-measured on the bike, and figured out the dimensions of how big it needed to stretch to look normal with him on it, how big the tank needed to be underneath him so it didn't look like a peanut,
Right.
you know, and did that and like made it so it, like, he said it's the only vehicle he's ever had that like made him feel normal size.
Oh,
You
that's
know?
cool.
Yeah.
I understand if you didn't like somebody, you would not make a bike for them. And I mean, I think there's notable example in like
that's
Limp
still
Bizkit's
company policy today.
Limp Bizkit's frontman Fred Durst. You turned
Yeah,
down.
I'm friends with. We became friends after that.
Okay.
But he wanted to like jump in line, and I want a bike, but I don't want to wait. I want to like, sorry, click. And then he's the dummy. He went and told everybody. I told him that. I'm like, thank you.
Is there anybody you've taken satisfaction in turning down?
Yeah, Sylvester Stallone
Really?
had bought some like brand new yellow Ferrari and a yellow Corvette, and then wanted a yellow bike to match, and then had his like manager call. I'm like, oh, sorry, no yellow. Like hung up, and then he called me back like, what the f-? Boo, boo, boo. Like what? I'm like, sorry, dude, I don't paint stuff yellow. Yellow is like the universal color for chicken. Like, nope, won't do it. And they were like baffled, like, because he had money to spend, and I just, nope, no yellow bikes.
When did it stop being fun?
I think when the shop got so big that like so many employees, and like I had some like really good friends, you know, I kept it in the family, and like 20 year friends working for me, and like I kind of busted a couple of them stealing for some pretty big 6-figure embezzlement and stuff like that. And that like,
Oh, wow.
it just like kind of took the wind out of my sails, you know, because people in your life that you trust the most. And then, you know, I didn't really learn what it was until later. You know, it was like some deep-seated envy, you know, because we kind of came up together and weren't on the same economic scale. So they thought they were entitled to what they took, you know, and it just kind of bummed me out, you know, kind of. I don't know. It's just like, you know, I think like Married to Sandy too, like everybody, it got real weird, man. It like was a whole, like people were fans, and then it was just like, it just got crazy, you know, crazy around the shop, and people, friends like that I knew, everybody treated me different. And
How so?
I don't really, can't really verbalize it, but it was just like a different thing, you know. That's when people really started like annihilating me in the media, like from day one with that whole deal. And like you're just in like really talking down, like I'm someone that prides myself of being a craftsman and like honing my skills and learning and doing stuff the best possible way, and like my core of what I preach is always about that and always positive. And then it just like the media was just relentless and vicious about, and they used, you know, calling me a grease monkey or a mechanic in like a derogatory way, where that's, you know, negative. Like I'm a lesser human because I work with my hands, and that, I think that stuff kind of got to me a little bit. I didn't really, you know.
I know at one point you had as many as 145 people on your payroll. You know, you kind of felt like it was getting too big for you.
$415,000 a month.
Oh, wow. And
So that's what was my nut I had to cover every month.
And you fantasized, I think, at some point about just ridding yourself of all of it. Why did you ultimately
I
decide to
talked
do
about this for probably 6 or 7 years. Man, I just want to go somewhere and have a shop where I work from home and I can spend time with my kids and my wife, and like, and just work in peace. And like, but I think we get on that treadmill, you know, you get that perceived success, you know. I'm driving Ferraris and got a house on the beach, and I'm married to some movie star, and like this big old business and a TV show and all that stuff. Life must be perfect, right? You know, but, you know, I don't think I was ever really comfortable in any of it. You know, I always felt like out of place, like all of a sudden I'd been thrust into this spotlight, but really what inside, I'm just a welder and a mechanic, and like, I'm supposed to be like laying under a car dirty. I'm not supposed to be at some red carpet or that type of stuff. Man, I was like, I don't like the person I became, you know. I like really forgot about what's important and forgot about myself, you know, doing what makes me happy. I kind of like started doing stuff, everything for what I should be doing or what everybody thinks I should be doing. And it's just like, it got so big, and lawsuits and divorce and just all this stuff. It just tornado of bullshit, and just like I just one by one started chipping away at all the stuff that didn't make me happy and didn't fill my soul up, you know.
You wrote in your book, Tuesday, March 16th, 2010 was the day I understood exactly how much I'd been given. It was also the day I learned what it was like to lose everything. You get the call that morning from Sandy's publicist.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know, that whole thing, it just ended bad. And it was like, I made mistakes and did stuff that I shouldn't have. I handled the situation not the way I should have. And you know what? I got divorced and lost a kid I adopted because of it. So, you know.
What was the hardest part of the whole situation for you?
I think losing my son. that I adopted. So for sure, you know, not being able to see him and see him grow up and all that stuff, and whether that's fair, whether I should have lost a kid due to infidelity, which I don't think anybody ever does, but I think with Hollywood law, that's totally fair. So
How do you handle a situation like that with your kids?
well, it was obviously emotional time for the older kids and stuff. They didn't have a real close relationship with her. So, but, you know, I just told them the truth. You know, I didn't try to pull any punches, or just told them what I did and what happened, and told them what, you know, and was truthful with them, which, you know, was painful for everybody. I think everybody was more, the painful part was about Lewis, who we adopted. You know, that was the tough part for everyone, you know, but we toughed it out in California, and then we just picked up and moved. You know what, this place isn't for us anymore. You know, there's like 60 paparazzi sitting in front of my house for 6 months.
And how severe did that get?
It was pretty bad. I beat the shit out of a bunch of them.
Really?
Yep.
What'd you do?
Just wait till the night, till they didn't see me coming, and like, you know, or run their cars off the road. You know, it's fair game. They're trying to make my life miserable and make money off of it, so I should be entitled to do the same. You just got to be sneaky about it so you don't get sued.
What you learned from going through that whole experience, that, you know, that time of your life when, for a period, I mean, you were the poster boy for everything you didn't want to be.
Well, it's...
At least in the media.
The media stuff is just business. That's nothing personal. They can call me a Nazi and a racist and an adulterer and a horrible father and all this stuff, but that's just a money-making business. The worse things they say about me and the worse headline, the more magazines they sell. And it's not just me, it's whoever. The part that I learned is like, you can't make a change in your life and change the person you are, because like you know, I quit drinking right after I came on TV and like really made an effort to change, but I'm still hanging out in a geographic location, which is like where I got in trouble, where like my gangster gangbanger friends all live, where we all grew up, where we all stole stuff, and where there's like a bunch of stripper hood rats coming by the shop and stuff all the time. And so how can I make myself a better person and expect to like be a husband and make the right decisions when I'm constantly surrounded by that negative influence, you know? And like, you know, in that whole situation, I should have just left. But you know what? I mean, as bad as stuff was between us, we adopted a kid and things got kind of good for a little while. And we had that kid to focus on, and then boom, it was over. In 24 hours, gone, done. You know, so in the relationship part, I was able to like kind of put out, you know, okay, it's over. I messed up really bad on a global scale, and everybody knows it. And I had to stand up in front of media and take full account for what I did. And I took it all, man. I told the truth, held myself accountable for what I did wrong, and took 100% of it right on the chin. You know, and nobody does that. Everybody denies it. All the publicists, everybody I talk to, like, oh, do you want me to deny it? You're like, this isn't true, is it? You know, everybody's ready for a denial. And like, hey, you know, I don't care about them, and I don't care about perception. I care about myself and what you know, what's going to make it better. And, you know, I think, and then look at where I am now. Would I be in the same place if I just denied it and tried to save face?
To what extent do you think the perception was fair?
Fair. What does fair mean? I think the adultery part was totally fair, because I made big mistakes and did stuff I shouldn't have, and so I deserved what I had coming. I think the whole Nazi part of it wasn't fair. You know, I think that was like, and I think it was fueled by her and her publicist. They could have like, they knew that stuff wasn't true, and they like, you know, someone had sold that picture to Us Magazine, and so obviously I'm joking, you know, and...
But you think they had involvement in that?
Well, they didn't try to, like, because they asked them, like, hey, is Jesse a Nazi? Like, is it true he's part of the Nazi party? Like, or some like that, and her exact quote to like Us Magazine was, "That's not the man I married." I'm like, oh God. So it just like poured gasoline on it and made it erupt. And it's like, that stuff kind of hurts me because, man, I grew up in like an all black neighborhood, and like, you know, we adopted a black son. You know, like,
Right.
and like, not because he was black. My requirement for the adoption was like, hey, I want the kid that needs us the most. I don't know. That stuff, I think, going back to the fairness of it, that stuff was unfair.
Why decide to go to rehab?
I think like things like life, and I think there was certain stuff that, like, you know, I'd got myself in similar situations for years, not with adultery, but just with getting myself in trouble and drinking. And like, you know, I think drinking for so many years was a giant Band-Aid for stuff in my life. And then once I quit drinking, I filled it up with just like overworking myself and working myself till I was delirious. And like, you know, and I think since working so much, you know, I felt a lot of resentment towards other people, and it just like, it was just a bad situation, you know, and I like wasn't the best dad, you know, I just couldn't make it work, you know. And I think stress and everything else, like, actually, Dan talked me into it, you know, said, man, maybe you should go get some help.
Did he?
Yeah, you know, and you know, oh, you, I don't need no help, you know. But then when you're all by yourself in my shop and there's a million paparazzi and I can't go anywhere and everybody hates me and I don't have any friends, and you start feeling like the weight of the world, you know, it wasn't a nervous breakdown or anything. It was like that. It was just like, man, you know, how is this happening? Why, you know? And it's, if it was something that I didn't cause myself, then I think it would be easier to digest, you know, why me, you know, like, but it wasn't why me. It was like, hey, me, you know, I did it, you know, I created this tornado of bullshit for myself. So like, how do I fix this? How do I be, you know? And like, just got in my car and drove there 4 a.m, told Carla, hey, you got to watch the kids, and split. Didn't tell anybody I was going, didn't do anything. And I went, and like, let me tell you, man, it's the best gift you could ever give to yourself if you've suffered any kind of like abuse as a kid or drug abuse or anything like that, to go give yourself I didn't even know what was wrong. I sat there the first couple of days like, look at all these stupid, you know, depression, and like, I'm not like that, you know.
Right.
I'm fine, you know, but I'm the guy that like just ruined my marriage because I banged some stripper. So, you know, and ruined my life. So there's got to be some kind of flaw in my personality that made me like think that was okay, you know. So I went, and it's the best ever.
How did it make you feel the first time you opened up in a group setting?
Oh, it was good, you know. That it was kind of, it all of a sudden, once you put, they don't go in there, look at, you're up, this is what's wrong with you, this is what you did. They don't do that, you know. They like you have to realize it for yourself, you know. And for 3/4 of the process, you're still like, kind of, man, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And all of a sudden, man, it just clicks, like, oh, this is what happens, you know. And it's you know, and like the kind of upbringing and the kind of stuff that I was around is like basically the same stuff that like, you know, career felons and people on death row and stuff have, you know. They go through the same kind of like abuse and trauma and stuff like that. That's what you create out of those kids, you know. And like, for me to like kind of pull through it and like, you know, see it for what it really is. And like, I owed it to my kids. You know, I did it for myself first and foremost, but you know what? I owed it to my kids to like be 100% the best dad I could be, you know, and like put in the hard work, you know, 3 therapy sessions a day, sometimes 4.
Wow.
You know, to like, you know, you can't pull a weed out unless you get the root, you know. You got to go in there and like figure out what the problem is and what you need to do and rectify it, and then and leave it all there.
Describe the role-playing exercise you participated in.
That was one that sucked because I had a girl. You like each member in the group like becomes a member of your family or a particular instance in your life, and like a girl was me, and like she was me at 7 years old when my dad broke my arm, and so like, you know, like to stand back and see her act me out, man, it was powerful. It like really got me because I think you just, when some stuff like that happens to kids, you either like turn to like milquetoast or you get tough. And I got tough. I was a tough, mean kid. Like no one, I didn't fear anything and I could fight my way out of anything. And if I didn't have something, I stole it. So like that's how it was. And I think that stuff, all that tough guy stuff was a big masquerade for like, there's this kid that's like scared of his dad's gonna beat the out of him, and like you don't really realizing it later and doing something about it, that's what I did.
How much different is life today than it was then?
Well, I still have the same welder and it still works exactly the same. So not much different in that respect. I think I'm a better person. I think I've embraced my craftsmanship in my life more, and like, 5 years after the fact, it's like I think I could have went one way or the other.
Right.
And I think I've made the right decision. I mean, stepping out here and seeing where I work every day, it's like, why'd you move from California? It's like, duh, look how awesome it is here.
You're also newly manufacturing guns. Mm-hmm. What led you to start getting involved in that?
California, we weren't allowed to own anything. So once I came to Texas and got my concealed weapons permit and then, got ATF approval, so I just started buying machine guns and all this cool stuff. And then like once I got every cool gun that I've ever wanted, then I'm like, oh, I could make one better than that. Looking at parts and looking at the way stuff's put together. I took a pistol apart about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and I like machined a new stainless slide and made billet grips and trigger job and had it all engraved and everything, and I posted it on like internet or Instagram or something, and then like someone that knew a prince in Kuwait, a friend of that, called me and said, yeah, this guy wants to buy 3 of those. I'm like, they're gonna be like 25 grand a piece. He's all, no problem. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm in the gun business now. So yeah, I still passionate and I still love bikes, but I've built 450 bikes in the last like 10 or 12 years. So it's like, and I feel like my style and the skill set that I'm doing is, there's no one to push me. There's no one that's really pushing the envelope like we have for so long that, it kind of, I'm only entertaining myself. Well, the gun industry, I see like it's pushing me and how my skill set, it feels like what I'm supposed to be doing, because like doing stuff for military and law enforcement, like my craftsmanship skills and meticulous way about doing things can like save people's lives and give them better weapons, quieter, better shooting. That's like kind of cooler than a bike. Like a bike, you could look cool, pulling up to the bar, but a gun, to have put it in the hands of our military, that's going to make them safer and, superior weapon. That's kind of a higher calling, I think.
What are the goals with the gun business?
We'll still keep I only want to make about 100 rifles and 100 handguns a year, and we'll keep that as like the core business. Each one's done for each customer. And we've had some pretty awesome stuff we've built, and then we have a whole military side where products we're developing for military stuff and trying to help them, a suppressor system and some other stuff we're working on. So, and that business could grow and be pretty big, be a military contractor, and that's stuff we're working on pretty good.
So many years down the line, where do you see this place?
I'm staying here, I think. I don't know. I only have like 8 guys at the shop, and one Jeff and one accountant, and Chandler, my daughter's over there, but I don't want it to get bigger. You know, I have no interest in like more buildings and more machines. I say that, but I have a new machine I just paid for today when I went to the bank on my bike. So it's coming here now. So, you know, and I already have a bunch of new CNC machines over there, but I kind of, my eyes are wide open, and I'm trying to do stuff in a different way now, you know, keep the success to not just what other people think and make people think I'm a big shot, but like, you know, keep it, you know, happy and fun and creative. This is just a little test model I did of an AR-15, and then these are like our new precision 308 rifle. So we make everything here, and we just qualified that one out of the course in California. So it's a sub-minute of elevation, which is like the accuracy standard, out to 1,000 yards. Super accurate.
And how long does it take to create one of these?
We worked on this one for probably 7 or 8 months.
What's the clientele for something like this?
I'm limiting the sales to people with money.
People with money?
We're not really selling too much to dealers. We're selling mostly retail direct. Everything's built to order, and people like that. The gun industry doesn't really have that.
What's your favorite type to build?
I'm getting equal satisfaction out of both. The pistols are harder to build, I think, than a rifle.
Yeah, well, what is this?
It's Damascus steel, like what they make samurai swords out of. I'll make this out of Damascus, and it takes me about 1.5 months or so to make one of those. This is like 10 layers, then you cut it, stretch it and cut it and fold it, and it's 20, then 40, then 80, all the way up to like 500 or 600 layers.
So what will you do with that?
Surface grind it, put it on the CNC machine, then all the hand fitting and hand machine work, and then test firing it.
So you're gonna teach me how to shoot?
Yeah, let's do it.
So you think you get it on the first shot?
Nope.
If you need an expert to take over, I'd be happy to help out.
You want to try it? Go ahead, man.
Holy.
Oh, you knocked it over.
Did I hit it?
Nope.
No.
There you go, right on the money.
So what kind of gun's that?
Full auto AR-15.
What's the difference between that and the one we were shooting?
You're gonna see in just a second.
You okay?
Yeah! Woo! You hit the small target. Good job, man. Nice shooting.
How'd I do?
I went to look at you and you were way back there. Like, if you hear a giant explosion, I mean, you probably should run. I'm dumb. So I just stood there and went like, whoa, look at fire's touching me.